Anyway, hey, we're live.
Hey, we're live.
We are live. We are live. We're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever for wherever you are. Will Townsend, raise your hand. My name is Matt Kimball, and I'm joined by that young man, the Hookem young man, on this lovely Friday, the last Friday of August, to talk about all things data center on the Moor Insights Strategy Data Center Podcast. Will, how you doing, buddy?
I am good. I just got back from Bellevue. I spent 2 days with T-Mobile on the T-Mobile for Business team. Got in at 1:30 a.m. You know, I saw one of your social posts about how just airlines across the board are just terrible with, delays and that sort of thing. And yeah, sure enough, an hour delay, and then I sat on the tarmac in Austin for 20 minutes because the Austin airport likes to play this game called Dude, Where's My Ramp Crew? And it's just ridiculous, man, So anyway, got to bed at 1:30 a.m. But hey, I'm just glad to be back home. I'm just so excited about my Texas Longhorns. We open against Ohio State on Saturday very early. Expectations are high. Arch Manning is starting. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a good. It's going to be a good game. And so, do you think it's going to be? I don't mean to curse your Longhorns, but I'm assuming they're going to win. Do you think it's going to be close, or do you think it's going to be a blowout?
Well, it's funny. I've got to keep my expectations very, very, let's say, realistic. I don't want to say low because, we've had, seasons where we were, sort of overhyped. I have been reading that some sports analysts believe that given Arch and given just the depth that we have the number one recruiting class, that it could be a blowout against Ohio State. I think it's going to be a close game. We won the national championship 20 years ago with Vince Young. We actually went to Ohio State. It was a very close game. We won basically in the final minutes. I'm hoping for a close. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm hoping for a win, obviously, but I'm just gonna, I'm not going to jinx it, man. I'm just not going to jinx it.
Are they in? I forget it. They're in Columbus, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I actually don't think it's going to be close. I think UT is going to blow them out. And I don't mean this negatively, but I'm not a fan of either team. I'm neutral on UT. I don't like Ohio State, but I don't think it's going to be that close. I think UT is just going to blow them out of the water.
I hope so.
Heard it here first. All right. Hey, this is not a sports podcast, although that could be fun. We're here for episode 49, talk about all things data center. Before we get into anything, we have to send out the what's the word? The legal term.
The disclaimer.
Thank you. Saying that what we say is for entertainment and information purposes only. We are not financial advisors, nor do we pretend to play them on our podcast. Don't take anything we say as financial advice. So what we mean by that, put more directly, is if you go invest based on what we say, you're an idiot. Boom. Okay. With that said, what are we talking about today? Well, we got NVIDIA, we got VMware, we got Cisco, we got HPE, and we got earnings galore, right? And I think you're first, right, with NVIDIA?
I am.
NVIDIA chat with us here.
The data center bridge. Paul is not with us today, so.
Oh yeah. Hey, before you get in, just to our friends out there, Paul is getting his oil changed today. He could not make it. He's getting his 90,000 mile maintenance done. He will be with us on the next podcast.
The check engine light was on with Paul, and we wish him well with that oil change and that lubrication.
You go ahead, Will.
Okay, we need to get going with this. So I want to talk about NVIDIA, and I tell you what, Matt, they're doubling down on Ethernet, and it's the right thing to do, right? InfiniBand has served the interconnect well for supercomputing, high performance computing, and that sort of thing. But recently, NVIDIA has introduced an enhancement to its Spectrum-X Ethernet platform. It's called Spectrum XGS, and it provides a scale across capability. This is new news for me. You and I have talked on the podcast about scale up, scale out.
Mm-hmm.
The whole concept around scale across is improving the interconnect with multiple geographically distributed data centers to create what NVIDIA wants to term AI super factories. And there's a lot of algorithmic, fun in enabling all of this. But at the end of the day, what it aims to do is provide congestion control over very long distances, fine-tune latency, and provide end-to-end telemetry management. So from my perspective, this continues to demonstrate that, not only is NVIDIA the front runner here, but they continue to refine their strategy. And I really like what they're doing on networking, because all the attention is typically on compute, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this before. We've highlighted companies like HPE, like from an OEM perspective, that really understand the importance of networking, because at the end of the day, if you can't move all this data around, into the cloud, for large language models, at network edges with the smaller language models that are emerging, this workflow, this modern AI, workflow and workload doesn't work. So I don't know if you caught the news, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, going back to the problem statement first, you're right. It's everybody focuses on how fast you can process data once it hits a GPU or a CPU, some compute engine. And not as many folks focus on what is really kind of the biggest challenge, and is how fast can you get the data from point A to point B to actually be trained, processed,
inferenced, whatnot.
whatnot, right? Which is why networking is so critical. I'm like you. I love that. I love that NVIDIA is embracing Ethernet as a standard. And not that it hasn't, but it's like it's leaning in. I like how they're building an NVIDIA goodness on top of the Ethernet stack. You talk about congestion control and kind of ensuring that latency, cross data center latency, is as low as possible. I love what they're doing there. So I love it. And I think what did they call it? Was it Ethernet for AI or something like that? They had a very specific term they used, right? Which is we are taking Ethernet and we're tweaking it, or not tweaking it, because that's the wrong word, because Ethernet is Ethernet, but we're adding value on top of it so that it is so finely tuned for AI workloads. Right? And so they're very clear in where you use Spectrum-X, where you don't use Spectrum-X, which is critical, because this is not something that, NVIDIA is not going in to compete with Cisco or Juniper / HPE. This is for Cisco only. So I love what they're doing. I love how they're thinking about that entire AI journey and the potential, not just bottlenecks, but inefficiencies that can exist across the stack and across the journey, and looking to remove them through NVIDIA-based solutions. So I'm a big fan of it. I'm a bigger fan of the fact, like I said, that they're not trying to be anything more than, improve the Ethernet connectivity for NVIDIA stacks. I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And it's interesting. I mentioned this whole notion of the super factory, right? And so this is new. This just launched recently. I'd love to come back to this topic maybe in 3 or 4 months to see like where it's gone, what the outcomes really are, and what's the sort of the additive capability of this when you're interconnecting all these very geographically diverse data centers, because they're positioning this as like it's kind of an AI super factory. So
one thing on the well, so because you're hitting on, which is, when I think when most folks hear super factory, they immediately go to, this is for hyperscalers, for really large installations, tens of thousands of servers, globally dispersed or distributed, and yada yada, right? What I'd like to hear is, if I'm a commercial enterprise customer, let's say I have 2 data centers, right? One on the East Coast of US, one on the West Coast of US, or somewhere in Europe. is there a kind of a scaled down version that NVIDIA is going to look to develop for me if I'm not using an NVIDIA SuperPod or an AI
Mhm.
factory from one of the OEMs? Let's say I'm just buying Dell servers and I'm putting the RTX Pro 6000 GPU inside of those, which is not the AI factory, right? But it's still NVIDIA based with.
Mhm.
Is there, am I able to support, is NVIDIA going to support that use case as well? Or is that outside the, I'm kind of curious as to see how this goes as AI really starts to be broadly adopted beyond just the really large companies.
Hyperscalers. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, that this is, I obviously probably aimed at the hyperscaler community to begin with,
Mhm.
but yeah, I would expect that this would move, because I mean, the challenge, and I think all of, when you look at their recent earnings and, the stock was down a little bit, and I still think there's some bubble bears out there that are like, oh, is this really a reality for enterprise use
Yeah,
cases? And
yeah,
certainly it is. You and I have talked about, about a third of the compute infrastructure appear, for AI appears to be enterprise. And, I expect that to grow. And something like this could really be a catalyst, right? To your
yeah,
point, to drive further growth into the enterprise. So
yeah, I think so.
yeah,
Interesting stuff, man.
yeah.
NVIDIA's at it again. Stay one step ahead.
Hmm.
All right, what are we talking about next? VMware. So making
Yeah.
private, cool. Yeah. So let me.
You were there. You were writing like a fiend. I think there was a Forbes article that you and Patrick posted, and I saw
Yeah.
a LinkedIn article as well. I mean, you were all
Oh,
over
I was a
exploring.
fiend, man. It's amazing what you can do when you're. I was going to make an inappropriate joke, but being in Vegas. Um, so, so let me kind of just do some context setting. When I was at AMD, let me actually back up. Before I even started at AMD, when I was still in IT, we talked about what was a private cloud without actually calling it a private cloud yet. It was virtualized data centers, create an experience, a self-service portal for users to come in and kind of request what they want, kind of deliver IT services that way, and do so in a way that you're not exposing yourself publicly. Um, Taken out of context, that can sound strange, exposing yourself publicly. So, um, and then a few years later, the cloud movement starts in earnest. Public cloud movement really kind of takes off. And at AMD, I think it was in 2010, we claimed to have the largest private cloud in the world. And what that really was a highly virtualized environment that was disconnected from the public cloud, right? So engineers in Taiwan could access, the EDA tools and kind of submit and check in stuff to servers that were based in Austin or San Jose or something. But that really wasn't private. I mean, that was the original instantiation of private cloud, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
what we originally went with. And then we moved to hybrid and, kind of on and on and on, right? So VMware comes out, Broadcom acquires VMware, hybrid is all the rage. Nutanix is taking shots at VMware, Red Hat's taking shots at VMware, Progmon, Scale, everybody's taking shots at VMware trying to steal their business, right?
Mhm.
Broadcom's going to, destroy VMware and turn it into, it's going to squeeze every penny and really not invest in innovation.
Yeah.
And nobody heard anything from Broadcom was not publicly talking a lot to try and counter these claims of I don't want to call them misinformation because I don't want to get but all this doubt that was being sowed in the marketplace.
Right.
And then boom, lo and behold, last year they announced VCF9, which is what they call the modern private cloud platform, which is the full realization of that cloud operating model on-prem. And but still people were like, poo-pooing it. Competitors were saying that, it really wasn't going to be what Broadcom thinks it's going to be. Costs are so much more, they're committing highway robberies, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And even I will say at Explore this time last year, there was a kind of a somber attitude at explore, kind of like a what's going on here, still a lot of caution and doubt.
Yeah.
Fast forward a year, VCF 9 has launched, customer adoption has begun, channel enablement has taken place, and it was a different environment. It is a VMware is back, baby.
Was it happy? Was it a happy environment?
It was a happy. Everyone was happy. It was a positive environment. I was talking to
Yeah.
someone in the press, and they're like, "Well, is this survivor bias? Everybody who left is, and I'm like, I don't think so. I
Mhm.
really don't think so because when you look at what Broadcom has delivered with VMware out into the marketplace, it is undoubtedly the most comprehensive cloud experience I have seen from any of the vendors.
Wow.
It is
That's
the
a bold statement, man. That's bold.
well, it's bold, but it's true.
Yeah.
Uh, and it is truly the cloud operating model and the public cloud brought on-prem. And when they say private, it can be private, but if you want a hybrid experience, you can implement a hybrid experience as well.
Okay.
But they have taken all of those pieces to VMware that were so great on their own, but so disjointed. NSX for networking,
Yeah.
Tanzu, ARIA, Tanzu for container management and orchestration, ARIA for control plane and cloud experience. They've taken all of these cloud foundations, all of these elements, and they've taken away all of the silos, fully integrated them together. So compute, storage, networking, all fully integrated. They've started to build AI capabilities in so that that developer that needs to get access to resources immediately so they can start building the next generation application for the business unit can get it like that, and build back happens like that, and provisioning happens like everything just happens.
Mhm.
And it's all being driven on the back through automation on the back end. VMware has arrived with BCF, and to me, this was a kind of putting their stakes down on the table, saying, okay, let's see if everybody else can match us. Not only that, so they've taken all these pieces, they've developed a stable cloud and platform for the
Mhm.
enterprise. And now they've taken with Tanzu, they've started to integrate AI capabilities like a data lake house for a data management platform. They started to integrate AI capabilities into the management. So they've delivered stability. Now they're starting to deliver that additive value at no additional cost for for their customers to consume, and really kind of not just kind of meet the market where it is, but get ahead of it.
Yeah.
The challenge is this, Will. And I'll ask your opinion in a second. But
Yeah.
the challenge is this: is and I say this in my article and I say it online. You had three types of VMware customers. You had ESX customers, and that's folks who really just downloaded the hypervisor and used it to get virtualization.
Yeah.
You had vSphere customers, and that's people who used virtualization and then used some VMware tools to manage the virtualization. So kind of in, but and then you had VMware customers, and that's
The
we
full end. Yeah.
yeah, we're using everything, right?
Yeah.
So on the two ends, I think the ESX customers, they're probably going to go off to, some alternative because they were never really extracting value out of VMware. They're
Yeah.
just hypervisor. On the other side, those high-end customers or the customers that were kind of using all the tools, they're going to love this.
Yeah.
VMware's challenge or Broadcom's challenge is that middle of the road, those vSphere customers who are using some tools and kind of getting value out of it. It's getting them to fully realize the value of VCF.
Right.
So they're delivering value. If you can get those customers to start extracting the value, so you put it out there,
Yeah.
or if your customers are taking it, VMware is set up for the long term, and they've got a great road ahead of them.
I think I think just from my perspective, Matt, that middle tier that you define. I mean, I think the challenge is the value, you're right. And so value is a mix of functionality and licensing. And one of the big negatives with all of this is the licensing, right? And what Hawk and team do typically, it's you call it value extraction, you can call it something more negative than that, but I think the challenge for that middle tier that you've defined is that can they rationalize the increased licensing costs for the functionality that they're taking advantage of, right? But I think you very eloquently addressed the concern that a lot of people had around, well, hey, Broadcom is just going to acquire VMware and they're not going to innovate. And in the integration that you just walked through, like I wasn't aware of that. That's a game changer. And honestly, I'm surprised that, prior to Broadcom's acquisition, that VMware wasn't focused on that. Yeah. Why do you think that was the case?
Because it was a typical tech company, and you've been at these companies, I've been at them, and
and they just get siloed, right?
Yeah, and it's especially in the software world. I've been at software startups and in bigger companies, and I've seen it in real life where you've got a core, and it's almost addressing it's a poor way of addressing the NVIDIA's dilemma, right? You're a company who goes out and you sold this thing called, or you made this thing called ESX, right? Or a virtual workstation, which is what it was originally. And it took off like wildfire, right? And you've got to address that. And you continually are supporting that. And you have all these, as a company, you have all these other ideas. I want to go let's address this virtualization thing. Let's apply it to networking. Let's apply it to storage. Let's apply it to security, right? And so you get these like almost skunk work projects that start spinning up, right? And they do great job, but you don't want to mess with that core business, right? So you have all of these functions or all these capabilities that start spinning up. And before you know it, you hit a siloed kind of organization where you've got all this great technology that's not fully integrated. It's so common. And VMware is not any different than any other company or organization in that way.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point. I mean, look at Cisco, right? They, their security and their networking development was separate. They had separate leadership, and that presented challenges, right? And so Jonathan Davidson moves on. Todd Nightingale moved on before Jonathan. G2 Patel takes over. He's managing the roadmap for both security and networking. I mean, there's a natural convergence that's been going on there for many years. And look at the gains that Cisco has made. Yeah. Look at what they're doing with respect to connectivity and runtime security and that sort of thing. So you make a very, very good point. I mean, typically a lot of companies they get siloed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need that kind of forcing function to drive. In the case of Cisco, it was G2 coming in and saying, "Okay, I am the agent of change, and this is what's going to happen." Right. That's good. In the case of VMware, it was Broadcom coming in and Hawk saying, "Look, no more. This isn't happening." I will say something on the licensing front.
Okay.
And I overheard, and I mentioned this in my article. I felt like a creepy stalker. I'm just going to preface what to tell you with this. So I'm on the elevator going down to the conference, and there were two VMware customers in front of me. And one of the customers, and they were talking about kind of their VMware experience. And one of them said, "Yeah, we looked at," and I'm not going to name the vendor, but we looked at these guys. And here's what we found is they provide an upfront discount or even free to make it seem really attractive, and like it, what they're offering is cost less. Yeah. But when we did the math and we looked at the life of the contract, it's not a big difference in cost. Yeah. And we're going to do that for the sake of taking a step backwards as far as functionality and capability goes, and moving from one proprietary stack to another. Yeah. Okay, because these guys are hitting on VMware as being you're locked into VMware. He's like, they're all locking you in. And I'm like, man, that is such an astute way of looking at it. And he is right. And there's a lot of gimmicks like licensing and pricing.
Oh, yeah.
VMware looks so much more expensive. But when you build it out, especially if these customers extract all the value, when you build out kind of what that 3 or 5 year contract looks like, it all washes out in the end. It's a few points here and there.
No, it's a good point. I mean, it's looking at the life cycle, right? And I'm a former Dell employee, and I remember back in the day that and I was mostly focused on when I was in sales and consumer, but then moved into product marketing. But the strategy back then, I'm not sure if it's the same today, but with very large customers on scheduled discounts, what Dell would do is like offer this very attractive price up front, let's say
Yeah.
for clients, right? And then but that was a 3-year refresh,
Mhm.
but they kept it, it was static, right? And
Yep.
so Dell would ride the supply chain efficiencies, right, and the cost down and that sort of thing, and so and actually recoup the margin, and yeah, and so it's a similar scenario to what
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
described with
Yeah.
VMware, right?
And
So
even if I'm showing you that, VMware is more, is twice as expensive over that 3-year term, when you go to renew with me on that alternative, guess what? My price is going right up. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's
yeah,
a it's a timeless kind of strategy. Anyway, we
yeah.
can talk about this all day long. I will shut up and we can move on to the next topic, which is Cisco earnings and HPE expectations. Ooh, wow.
And I know you're going to have a lot of insight on this as well, Matt.
I have no insights anywhere. I work for More Insights, but I have none myself. So,
Well, so I was on vacation encountering black bears on a trail hike with my wife when the earnings broke. We'll save that story for another podcast. But and so like I very eloquently set up Cisco, mentioning Cisco, just a few minutes ago. But yeah, what I like to do is like just kind of provide kind of my perspective on earnings and get yours, and then let's not leave HPE out of this as well, because they're set to announce earnings on September 3rd. I think
yeah.
you're actually going to have an opportunity to speak with Antonio Neri.
Mhm.
I'm going to miss that conversation. I'm kind of jealous, but let me jump into it. So Cisco, it was about a week and a half ago, announced earnings. Hey, they're performing really well. I mean, solid top line revenue growth with both hyperscalers and enterprises. We were talking about NVIDIA earlier. They're integrating Spectrum X with the Nexus switching portfolio. That's really, providing that the necessary performance for AI workloads and applications. And security continues to be a bright spot for the company. And I published a Forbes article after Cisco Live, but you and I were there, and I talked a little bit about something called AI Canvas, and it's funny because now when I'm on briefings with a lot of their competitors, a lot of AI Canvas is almost becoming sort of the Kleenex of tissue, and it's being used to describe the management console that is generative, that you can it's sort of widget sort of based, and sort of facilitates a much easier management plane. But finally, also Cisco spoke to its strong order pipeline,
Mhm.
and I don't remember the exact figure, but it just on the earnings call, I was quite impressed with the size of the pipeline there. And then I was also really impressed with the companies, what they're doing to hedge future potential impacts of tariffs, if they kick in, if they don't kick in, whatnot. But from my perspective, the company's firing on all cylinders. But I know you spend a lot of time with Cisco as well. What's your take on their most recent earnings?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I I agree with you on the well, across the board, but especially on the kind of the AI front and the Canvas utility they have. I think to me that was so we went through 6 months of, or maybe 4 months of conference season, right? Kind of
Yeah,
from February to June or so, whatever that is. And that was one of the wow moments for me.
for me
Because
too. Yeah,
yeah, it shows you kind of where the world is going. And it's interesting to me that every conference we were at, management is an AI driven management is a key element of that company's goods, right? Whether it's Dell Tech World, HPE Discover, so on and so forth. Cisco had the most wow moment for me.
Chuck Robbins stated that it was the largest payload in the history of Cisco Live. So, and it was hard to disagree with that statement.
So I like what they're doing, and it's also reflecting in their earnings and kind of in their some what you see out there, and that is they are looking kind of like NVIDIA. They're looking at it from the kind of system up level, if you will, not silicon as well, sometimes silicon, but it's where are the challenges in the AI activation across the enterprise? How does Cisco impact that? And how can Cisco impact that? And how does Cisco remove those challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they talked about, in networking, they talked about congestion control quite a bit. They have their own utilities. They're starting to bring Splunk in for observability, not just for security, but for otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
What I would really like to see out of them is a stronger push on not just UCS, but their compute portfolio. They have a good compute portfolio. That is I sometimes call it that and Intersight. I sometimes call their two best kept secrets because they're both so powerful and so capable. But I feel like they get lost in the networking security and security goodness that Cisco provides, which is understandable because those do steal so much oxygen in the room. But there is such a good story around compute and around manageability as well. That I think gets kind of sometimes overshadowed.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And, I believe, I'd like to get your opinion on this because this is your coverage area. But I do believe that, what NVIDIA is doing, with just, GPUs and, leading the modern AI charge in general has actually functioned as a catalyst to reinvigorate their compute portfolio because they let it kind of wane for years. It was just sort of a checkbox and they weren't competitive. In fact, at Cisco Live, I sat at one of the dinners right next to the corporate strategy lead for Cisco. And I mentioned that. And it's like, I'm probably mentioning the most obvious thing, in the room. And he agreed. So, I mean, do you sort of agree with that?
I do. The thing is, and I still remember when Cisco first came out with UCS back in, what was it?
Long
was
time
it 2012 or so, or maybe a little bit before that? I was like, man, this is a game changer. And it's a competitive platform. The problem is they just never really, it feels like they never put the full go-to-market weight behind it.
Totally agree.
For whatever reason. I mean, there are a lot of issues in there, a lot of reasons why that can be. So I don't want that's not a criticism. It's just an observation. And you're right. I think this AI craze has reinvigorated the compute play. The trap you don't want to fall into is becoming another NVIDIA reseller.
Distributor. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But if the only reinvigoration you're getting is selling more GPUs and not delivering a differentiated experience, then you're just like everybody else.
I agree. Or taping $100 bills on servers when you look at the financial performance of some of the OEMs, and I'm not going to call anyone out, but the margins, at least, and you've written about this as well. I mean, some of the margins on the compute sell end into the enterprise have been frightening.
Oh, they're frightening because
I had to ask you, like, on one particular quarter with one particular OEM, it's like, Matt, did I read that right? Like single digit margin? And you're like, yeah, dude. Yeah. That's crazy.
That's what happens when NVIDIA is selling their GPUs at $30K a pop, and you're not getting any kind of discount.
There's not a lot of room for
And it's a smart move by NVIDIA. I mean, they know that hyperscaler or that large customer wants that part and is willing to pay. So if they're willing to pay, why would we discount on a sell through when we know what the customer's going to want to pay? So anyway.
For sure. Well, hey, let's shift the discussion and let's talk a little bit about Hewlett Packard Enterprise. So they are set to announce earnings on September 3rd. I don't have a lot of insight here, but this will be the first full fiscal quarter post Juniper acquisition. So I'm expecting to see some interesting things materialize from this.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to see they've already begun sort of the integration process. What's interesting, if our viewers and listeners haven't been following this closely, is that there's a dual branding strategy. So the Aruba brand sub brand will remain, the Juniper sub brand will remain. The company is being very prescriptive on where they position things. And obviously, one of the weaknesses historically that HPE had was data center networking. And so Juniper brings that strength. And I wrote it, actually HPE commissioned the firm to write a paper. I wrote a paper. I published it when the acquisition closed. And Patrick Moore and I also had a video interview with Antonio Neri. But so they're being very, very prescriptive. So, obviously Aruba is going to be campus branch, and I'm oversimplifying things here. Juniper, data center service provider, but they're going to have to be very crisp in my mind moving forward so that customers are not confused, but more importantly, partners are not confused, because if you confuse the IT channel, then they're just going to fall back and they're going to go sell Lenovo, they're going to go sell Dell or whatever. So that's my advice to them. But it's going to be really interesting to see, this full first fiscal quarter, with with Juniper kind of in the mix, where they land. I'm expecting it to be positive, but it'll be interesting to see, what really unfolds. What are your thoughts about, where they're headed with compute and storage?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. By the way, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The channel is likes to be as frictionless as possible, and if you make things complicated,
it's no bueno.
It's like water. They take the path, they find the easiest path and go.
I lived that life as a channel marketer and as a channel seller, for many years in corporate America.
Yeah, I think from a compute and storage perspective, I'll kind of focus on compute first. So you talked about Cisco having the most wow moment from a demo perspective with AI Canvas. For me, it's funny. I kind of have three classes. I think they had the most wow moment from a demo perspective. I thought Pure Storage, when they had Accelerate, they did the best job of describing kind of in the real world how AI today can help infrastructure management and help in the real world and augment humans, right? Not like I watched the Cisco thing and it was wild, but part of it was like science fiction-y for me. And I don't mean in a negative way, but it's like, we talk about Minority Report. It's like, oh man, and it's really cool. And it is where the world is going. But today, right, I thought Pure did the best job in a pragmatic way of saying, this is how we're using AI today, a co-pilot today, to help you drive automation of management of your storage and data infrastructure. So simple. And it's like, here's how you use it. Here's how IT can do better, right? So it's like really kind of grounded in reality. And then I thought HPE did the best job of describing how kind of like taking almost a slightly different tack than Cisco and being a little bit more broad and showing how the agentic enterprise is going to be managed through GreenLake Intelligence and I remember distinctly Antonio talking about your storage admin is now an agent. Your compute admin, server admins are now agents with a team of agents to support, and same for storage, same for networking, and how you're driving toward this agentic driven management of your data center and your environment. And I think he's spot on. So I think from a compute and storage perspective, I really think the compute platforms, no one likes to hear it, but they're largely commoditized. It's either Intel or AMD or ARM, and it's NVIDIA inside, and maybe AMD inside. But there's not as much you can do bending metal around the silicon to create large levels of differentiation. HPE's done a great job with security. I think they're starting to realize, though, or not starting to. I think all of the vendors realize that differentiation at the hardware level is going to be more and more difficult
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing from HPE is really focusing on the how you manage all of this effectively and manage your data environment effectively, from hardware to software or to OS to application to data, how that all gets managed and how you do it globally. A single control plane to do it all.
Yeah.
That's where the folks, and they told a great story around that with Calm, with Morpheus,
Ops ramp as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of this is kind of coming together. The question is, how does it get integrated long term? But I think they have the right vision of where they're going
Yeah.
with compute. I wholeheartedly agree with you on the making it easier for partners and customers to understand all of this.
Hmm.
They don't always do the tidiest job of that, which is understand. This isn't easy stuff to talk about, right?
Right.
But I think they can tighten up that storytelling and go to market a little bit. But
Hmm.
from a portfolio perspective, everything's aligned for them.
Yeah, I agree. And like you make a really good point. I believe that from just sort of an overall sort of management perspective, the acquisitions that HPE has made in those companies that you mentioned, and I've spent time with the OpsRamp team, I think that really sets them apart. Dell has some manageability, but it's not multi-vendor. Okay. So that's going to be a challenge for Dell. They're going to need to work on. And like I don't spend a lot of time with Lenovo, but does Lenovo even have like a multi-vendor sort of ops ramp kind of?
No, they do. They're Lenovo's doing a lot with xClarity. I think Lenovo has looked at Intersight from Cisco as kind of the North Star, kind of from a competitive perspective of where they want to go. And what I mean by that is because, by the way, Intersight could easily be multi-vendor.
Sure.
From a compute management perspective, it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
Call me Cisco, I'll help you do it. But I
You
think
heard it first from Matt Kimball.
exactly. But xClarity is kind of looking at that Intersight experience and architecture as their North Star.
Okay.
And it's decent, but I think to what you're saying, HPE, I think, is unmatched in terms of kind of multi-vendor, multi-function, orchestration to manageability to observability, tying all that together. They've got it all.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there are other companies that match that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And certainly on the orchestration front too, when you look at what they were doing, when they had a very discrete focus on the broader telco marketplace, they had some amazing things that they did from an orchestration and automation perspective, BSS, OSS layers and that sort of thing. That just wasn't like a plugin from Amdocs and that sort of thing. They've since moved on. They've sold some of those assets. They're very focused on private 5G with Ethernet core and that sort of thing. But yeah, we could go on about this, but we should probably move to your final topic.
Yeah, sorry. That's good stuff, though.
Yeah.
All right. Earnings season. I'm really just going to. So I was trying to do lions and tigers and bears, like, oh my banner, but it didn't really work. So earnings season in full force. NVIDIA was obviously the darling of the networks this week, and everybody kind of talking about NVIDIA earnings 24/7. And it's funny to me that you can deliver what NVIDIA delivers and the
your
market
stock goes down.
Yeah. So I can't swear, but it's so effing stupid.
It's dumb. It's not rational. No.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I know, okay, all you financial analysts out there, you can comment that we're stupid and we don't understand that,
markets and all that.
Yeah, I don't care. They delivered so much money and so much margin, and you're hitting them for it. Are their inventories up a little bit? Sure. Is that sign of them waning in influence and in market ownership? No, not at all. Sorry. But I really want to focus more on Pure Storage. I love these guys. It's all these companies are filled with great people. I love the folks at Pure. I love the folks at Nutanix. Love NVIDIA. They all have great AR teams and great product teams. But while every company out there in the tech world is trying to repaint itself as an AI company, Pure has stayed, Pure. They've stayed
They
true
stay
to
pure.
yeah, they've stayed true to who they are. They're an enterprise storage company that manages your storage and data infrastructure. They're not all AI. AI is an element of what they do, but
Mhm.
their main focus and their main job is to deliver a performant, secure, and resilient storage environment for your enterprise data. They've stayed true to that. They've talked about their AI. I mentioned some of their AI strategy from a management, but also in kind of enabling AI. They've made moves to kind of move up the stack in terms of AI, but they stay true to who they are. And what happens? They have an incredible quarter. I think it's 13% year-over-year growth, while their closest competitor had 1% year over or 2% year-over-year growth. And the
Wow.
largest player out there had a negative 8% year-over-year growth. So while everybody else is flat to down considerable, they're up double digits. They gave strong guidance for the remainder of the calendar year, in the remainder of the fiscal year. They have a great AI strategy. They've secured a win with Meta, and they're starting to play more and more in the hyperscale space. They've got the highest NPS score, which is customer satisfaction score,
Mhm.
of any tech vendor out there. They are absolutely killing it. And you know what
Mhm.
happens? Their stock is almost up 30% since they announced their earnings the other day. So
Wow. That's
top to them.
crazy. That's
Yeah, and
crazy.
you know what? Well, it's a lesson to everybody out there. AI is critical, and AI is strategic for enterprise IT, but enterprise has more to deal with than just AI.
Yeah, don't define yourself by AI. I mean, it's the gold rush, right?
Yep,
But there's so much whitewashing going on.
yep.
I love their strategy. I love the fact that they're not hanging their hat on AI alone.
Mm-mm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they did good job. They do a good job of describing AI as a workload,
Yeah.
AI as a tool, and AI as a threat, and how they kind of play in each one of those.
Yeah.
But they're very clear to point out that they're there to meet the entirety of your needs,
Mhm.
not just this kind of very narrow view of the world. So the
Mhm.
fantastic season. Congratulations to them. I can't wait
Yeah.
to see what HPE has. Last note, kind of going ADHD on you, but Dell announced yesterday, and I think their compute was up 60 something percent year over year, all AI focused. And I think they,
So the stock took a hit. What was it, margin related or what?
yeah. So they were the ones I was talking about on the storage side. Their storage business is down.
Got it.
Their compute is up. Like I said, I think 68% or something like that.
Yeah.
Their AI backlog is 20 billion, I think. Their
Holy moly.
their client business was not strong.
No.
They had a down quarter in client, which is a lot of revenue, as you know. And I think they may have had negative margins on the client side.
Hmm.
Uh, and the infrastructure side, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I should, but I don't. But the infrastructure side, like I said, their server and networking market was numbers were really strong from a revenue, but yeah, I don't think the margins were as robust as the market would have liked.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, look, when your compute business is growing on the data center side, grew 60 something percent year over year. It's kind of like Nutanix, give me a hit, but you go ahead, give me a hit. But I'm delivering billions upon billions of
Of
dollars.
top line. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm growing my business in the high double digits, on top of a high number.
Yeah.
So, you know, come on, Wall Street, give me a break.
Exactly. It's like a supermarket. You drive a shit ton of volume, but the margins are 1 or 2%. Or what's the old adage? Like, we may lose money, but we'll make it up in volume or something. I
Yeah,
don't know what that
yeah,
adage is, but
yeah, yeah. We'll make it
yeah.
up volume. We'll end up losing more money. Uh,
Hmm.
all right. So, what do you got going on for the weekend? Anything?
I'm going to be glued to the TV on Saturday. I mean, UT Ohio State, but there's like 3 or 4 other really great games. So it's going to be a day full of football. I've been traveling a little bit, so I'm looking forward to just getting a little bit of pool time on Monday. And then my next trip is I'll be spending time with Splunk in Boston, September 8th through the 10th, and then I'll have a week home, and then I'll head to London for Connected Britain. I've done panel moderation at Connected Britain over the last several years, and so I'll be doing 2 panels the week of the 20th. So I'm looking forward to London. I always enjoy spending the week there and working remote and hobnobbing, in the pubs, and I might even walk by Big Ben. I love the Parliament area. My favorite pub, the Red Lion, is like just right across from 10 Downing Street. So if you sit outside, sometimes you can get a little peek of the Prime Minister walking in and out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I went to a pub in London. It was the oldest pub in London.
Yeah,
it was after a Discover event.
Mm-hmm.
Discover event or during. And the story was, it was where the executioners would go after they hung people or chopped their head off. This was
for a cold one.
Oh, listen to that.
Oh my God! Did you buy a T-shirt, Matt?
I should make one, actually.
Where are you headed?
So I'm in Boston. I left VMware Explorer in Vegas to come to Boston.
Yeah.
To help my 23-year-old son, if you're listening, Jasper, move from one side of Boston to the other, because apparently at 23 years old, he's not yet capable of moving.
He can't do it himself.
I told you this offline. If I had gone to Lillian or George, my parents, when I was 23 years old, and said, I need help from moving from one neighborhood of Boston to the other,
yeah,
I would have been disowned. I would have been cut off from the family entirely, which I guess is disowned. I would have been shamed publicly.
Yeah.
And I would have killed both of them, because they would have both had heart attacks from laughing so hard. I'm not disowning my kid. I'm not dying from a heart attack, but I am shaming him publicly.
Well, and I shared with you offline before we started the podcast that my daughter, my little rock star daughter, Lexi, if she's listening, which she probably doesn't, because she's totally unimpressed with what I do for work. She works for Halliburton, and so she started in Midland, Odessa. And 2 years ago, I moved her in, at the height of summer. It was like 115 degrees, and like we couldn't even leave a single item off the U-Haul for longer than 5 seconds, because it would, incinerate.
Yeah.
And so she's transferring to Houston. She's going to be closer to both her mom and me, and so we're looking forward to that. But she reached out to me a few months ago and said, "Hey, Dad, can you come help me move?" And I go, I won't, but I will pay for a professional move. How does that sound? So she agreed. So I'll be writing the check or providing a credit card for that. But yeah,
I would happily do that for my kid. The problem I have is Boston is people forget Boston's a college town.
Yeah.
And there are anywhere between 250,000 college students in Boston proper. And every year on September 1st, they all move from apartment A to apartment B, or in and out of dorms. So to find people to help you is next to impossible. In fact, I rented a U-Haul van, but I had to get one 40 miles outside of town because everything is booked.
Yeah.
So it's going to be me, my brother, and I think my son is going to direct us. He's going to tell us where to put things. So, yeah, that's my weekend. And I can't see past that. I know I have travel coming up. I know I have a lot of travel, but I can't see past.
You gotta focus on the goal, man, right? That's right in front of you there. So good luck.
But if y'all are in the Fens on Saturday or in the North End on Monday, come see me. I'll buy you a slice of pizza at Regina Pizzeria on Monday if you want to help me move my kid into his new apartment. So he's going to be on North Street.
Good luck, Matt. Good luck.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we got. Hey, this is a fun chat, Will. Thanks for jumping on. Paul, we hope the oil change went well.
Yes.
We hope the spark plugs are flying the way, or sparking the way they're supposed to, firing the way they're supposed to. Thank you all for joining in. And as we had mentioned, please don't take anything we say as an investment
Please
advice. Please don't. You're really not doing yourself a service, and you're making yourself look bad. But we hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. And if you didn't, please go. Don't do anything. Like and subscribe nonetheless.
Yeah.
And we will see you in 2 weeks. Otherwise, have a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. And hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns. Thanks, guys.